teaching. What do you think?
So, yeah, of course. So, when I became an online teacher, it was something that was always kind of in my mind, in the back of my mind, is something that I would like to do because I've always been interested in languages. And I also really wanted to work with people in a way that like they're happy to be working with me. But because before I worked in insurance, and in insurance, it's like you're only dealing with people who are upset. So, I had this idea and I was just like waiting for the right moment. And finally, a friend was like, just do it, like apply on Italki because he was a teacher on Italki. So I just was like, okay, sure. So I applied and got in as an English teacher on Italki as a, well, not a teacher, but a community tutor because at the time I didn't have any certificate or anything. So I didn't really know what to expect. So I just set my rates at $10 an hour to see what would happen. So I learned on the fly as I was doing it. Like I got tons of classes and I was like, whoa, I did not expect that much interest. So I started kind of like creeping the prices up little by little. I did an ESL certificate and then raised my prices a little bit more. And I think it was around, no, it was in the summer of 2022 when I first kind of had the idea that I wanted to start treating it more like a business rather than just like, I'm an online teacher, I just charge for these classes, whatever. And I thought, okay, maybe there's a way that I can grow this to actually earn like a really decent income, but doing this thing that I already found that I really love. So around that time is when I found the Teacher Entrepreneur Network group on Facebook and just seeing those posts and starting to like see the free materials, these kind of interviews and stuff was like, oh, there's something to this. And I did a lot of the free training. Like there was a free training about finding your niche. I did that and started slowly taking classes off italki, like finding people the way that James recommends, like on LinkedIn and this kind of stuff. As I was doing the niche worksheet, I decided that my niche would be accent coaching because as I was teaching people English, I noticed over and over and over people would come to me wanting to work on their English. And as I worked with them, I realized you don't really have any grammar problems. I think the only problem you have is just this pronunciation thing. Like you don't feel confident because people are having a hard time understanding you. So I decided to become specifically an accent coach and specifically for Spanish speakers because I speak Spanish. So I did the Teacher Entrepreneur Challenge, the 21-day challenge in August of 2023. And so I started following those, like the advice in that and working on LinkedIn. But at the same time, some of the things I heard convinced me I should do social media, which is, your social media, you don't have to be super, super famous or have a ton of followers to make a good living with the marketing efforts from your social media. So I started on Instagram and my audience just started growing and growing and growing. And so therefore I was able to form groups rather than doing one-on-one. And it just was growing more than I realized what to do with. And so that's when I reached out to James to do one-on-one coaching to figure out what should I do with all of this attention I'm receiving. And now I have group sessions and I have a membership.
That's great. That's good. Yeah. Thanks for sharing your journey with us. And we're going to deep dive on a couple, I would say, major milestones that you had in the past few years. So I'm going to start with the first one. I think a lot of teachers came here because they didn't believe English teachers can charge over $100 an hour, which is true. We have a lot of suspicions, and some people call me the $100 guy because because that for a long time that has been my message. You can charge
Mm-hmm.
over $100 an hour. So a lot of teachers here might wonder, okay, so Meredith, what's the reason? Like, why do you think you are able to charge $100 an hour? What made it possible for you to charge over $100 an hour teaching online?
So, from a practical perspective, what allows me to charge that much is 100% all about niche teaching. Now, what allows me to charge that personally, I definitely first had to work on my mindset because I think when we as teachers kind of trade our time for money, we get into this mindset of like, how much could my time really be worth? Right. And that's like a personal thing. Like, how much is my time worth to me? But we kind of have to get outside of our own head and think about, well, how much is not just my time, because it's not about time. How much is this service worth to someone else? right? Like if in that 1 hour session, I can give someone a result that for them is extremely valuable and they are willing to give me what to me seems like a lot of money, then it is worth that. Because the result that person has decided the result that they receive from that session with me is worth whatever price they're paying. And so I really had to untangle my mindset about it and not think of it as like, how much do I consider my time worth? It's like, no, how much does the client or customer consider the service, the thing that I'm doing for them, worth? And so that's how, in my mind, I was able to finally justify charging what my services are worth. But on the practical side, I really have a hard time believing someone could do this if they are not niche teaching. If you're teaching just English, like, hey, just take an English class with me, I have a hard time imagining that someone could charge a lot of money for something like that, because you need to be able to, as James talks about all the time, sell a result, not a class. So you're not selling like a session or a class. You're selling, hey, you have this problem, and through my services, we can get you to this point where you no longer have this problem. And that's the thing that really is worth money to the client. So you can do that by being very specific in your niche and helping your clients solve a problem rather than teaching them something.
Well done. I think you did a really good job explaining niche teaching, a better better job than I do. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that mindset and niche teaching. I guess one thing about mindset, just quickly comment on that. I think the fact that teachers don't believe it, don't believe in themselves, is not only themselves, it's not only their mindset, it's also how the market, how companies, how the schools been telling them, been treating them, right? So if you grow up in an environment like nobody can even imagine something could happen, then you wouldn't believe that could happen. And that's what happens to teachers. If you are seeing your colleagues and yourself and everyone you know are getting $7 an hour, $17 an hour, then having $100 an hour is just like unbelievable.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think we'll talk about this a little bit more later on, but one of the reasons I resisted for a long time, even though I had this strong feeling that being an ESL teacher was my calling, I resisted for a long time because if you go on Google and search like average salary of an ESL teacher, especially like average salary of an ESL teacher online, it's like, you know, between $10 to $20 an hour, maybe 25, right? If you're lucky. And so when I would see those kind of things, I was like, oh, that's kind of not what I want to have for myself long term. And so, yeah, you're right, James. We have a mindset that we receive that this is the norm, right? Based on what language academies say, based on what ends up happening on websites like Italki, people end up looking for the lowest they can get. But I think what happens is people do that. They search for the cheapest teacher they can find and they take those classes. And eventually, those people, not everyone, but those people are going to say, I don't know if I'm seeing the results I want. And then if they really value the results, they will decide not look for the cheapest anymore, but rather to look for the person
Exactly.
that can get them
Exactly.
results.
Exactly. Thanks for sharing that.
I
So I
think
want to,
Barbara has a question in the chat.
yeah, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. So is your teaching live or some recorded? It's a mix. So right now, so when I do one-on-ones are now kind of the smallest part of my business, but those of course are live. For group sessions, those are live. I am currently in the process of modifying my group courses to be sort of a flipped classroom model, if you know what that is, where we watch a video training outside of class and then we have more class time to spend practicing what you learned outside of class. But for now, they are live, my group sessions. I do have a digital course, which I do generate some income from that and people can work through that on their own. And that's totally video based. And then they have the option to book a session with me to kind of track their progress.
That's great. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Yes, and I do want to ask in the audience, we talk about the possibility for teachers to charge over $100 an hour if you, according to Meredith, have the mindset, believe in yourself, and also do niche teaching. So I wanted to ask you guys, given what we said so far, who believe you can charge over $100 an hour now if you didn't believe earlier? If you believe that, if you can comment $100 an hour or yes in the comments, we'll see if we actually deliver the message we want to deliver today. So anyone, if you didn't believe it, now listening to Meredith, listening what we said, you kind of feel like, okay, that's possible. I can do that too if I follow the right approach. Anyone? So Thomas, definitely possible. John, thumb up. Shamala, yes. Okay, anyone else? So mindset and niche teaching. So yourself and the right approach. And Steffi, I believe it's possible. Yeah, you did it yourself, Steffi. All right. Swati, yes. John, it's possible. Barbara, you need to target the target audience. Good, good. All right, thanks for sharing that, guys. We're gonna move on to the next one. Okay, there's so much more we're gonna talk about today. Stick with us. Okay, stick with us. So next part, still looking at Meredith's journey. She started with the one-on-one and then increase her rates because of the mindset, because of niche teaching, right? And then she transitioned to group coaching, group teaching, all right? So a lot of you, I know, probably have a questions. If you are teaching one-on-one right now yourself, you might have a question. How did that happen? How do you actually transition from one-on-one to groups? What are steps or what I need to do that? Meredith, can you elaborate on that to help them?
I was in that phase for maybe it wasn't such a long time, but in that moment, it felt like a long time of like, I realized like, okay, I'm charging a lot for one-on-ones, but my time is the bottleneck. Like I know that the next step in my business has to be group sessions. And I just felt like I was saying that all the time. The next step has to be group sessions, but I just like couldn't figure out how to do it. And it is hard in the beginning because it's like you have to have enough people to do it and also the interest, and it can be kind of hard to convince people that group sessions are better. But now that I do mostly group sessions and I have done group sessions in my language learning, I really like the vibe a lot more. Students really have a strong idea that one-on-one is the best way to get results, and that's not always true, and it can be hard to convince them of that until they try it. But the way that I finally got it to work was like I just had a certain moment where I had two people reaching out to me at the same time, and they were like, I need classes, but I can only do it in this schedule. And I realized that their schedules kind of coincided. And so I just kind of put it to them almost like there wasn't an option. I was like, okay, well, we're going to do a two-person thing at this date, at this time, once a week. And I just kind of put it to them like, this is how it is. This is what I can offer you. Because it was a time I didn't really want to teach. It was like 8 p.m. and my social battery is really drained by that time. So I see Ruben is asking, how many students do you have? Right now I have 4. But at the time that I started, I was like, I'm just going to try with 2 and see what happens. So it was a time I didn't really want to teach. It was like 8 p.m. So I was like, okay, these 2 students both want classes at 8 p.m. I'm just going to tell them, boom, this is how it is, right? It's going to be a group session, a duo session, right? And I decided also to put a price that I would be okay with if one of them dropped out. So I decided to charge them both $45 per session and sell it in a package so that if one of them said, you know what, I can't, I would still be okay with teaching just one of them so that it didn't totally fall apart. Then a third person reached out to me and I was like, oh, perfect. So I added them to it too. And it just kind of worked the first time. And I feel like it's one of those things where once you do it, the next time becomes easier and the next time becomes easier to find these people and tell them this is what I have for you. Cause people are always reaching out like, hey, can I get classes? Can I get classes? And if you tell them, yeah, I offer this and make it sound like that's it. Like I offer a group session. Here you go. We start on this date. Then if it's that or nothing, then they'll say yes.
That's good. That's good. I think one of the things I will add a little bit more to will be it's gonna be hard if you don't have a niche to offer groups, right? People want different things. So you have a niche that related to niche teaching we talked about earlier. You need to have a niche, and then everyone in the group having same problems, looking for same results, and it's easier for you to do that. Another thing I want to comment on too, and Meredith, maybe you can elaborate, will be like a program-based teaching. So it makes things easier if you do groups, you have a program, everyone
Yeah.
join for the particular program. Maybe you can take it over, Meredith.
Yeah.
How that help you?
James, what you just said and what I'm about to say about program teaching, I think really answers Barbara's question about how do you meet the needs of each client. So when you are a niche teacher, as James was saying, and you say, I help you solve this problem, then the people who come to you seeking classes aren't going to have these very like particular specific needs. When you teach English in general, every person who comes to you is going to be like, well, I have a problem with the third conditional. Well, I have a problem with phrasal verbs. Well, I have a problem with prepositions. And so then you're like, how can you possibly combine these together? Because they're totally different needs. But when you say, no, my goal is to help you solve this one problem. Like in my case, I help Spanish speakers learn the phonetics of English so that they can use correct pronunciation in English. And so everyone who comes to me asking for classes, they have the same need. And so that's how I can meet that need in a group setting. And with program teaching, that was a big game changer because for two reasons. One, kind of the marketing is so much easier when it's a program because you're saying you have this problem and we will have this many classes and by the end your problem will be solved. So it's like not just like, hey, take some classes. It's like, no, let's solve your problem. And that's easier to sell. And then two, I mean, there's probably more than just two. The other thing is that so much less planning on behalf of the teacher because you do all this planning in the beginning. You create a really good program. And of course, you're always tweaking it and making it better. But ultimately, it's not like this very, tailored individualized thing that you do when you're teaching one-on-one typically, where you have to plan the lesson every time you have a lesson. You have all of the lessons planned before you even start.
It's good. Really good. Okay. Niche teaching, program-based teaching. Now we are at a stage where Meredith transition from one-on-one teaching to program-based teaching. One-on-one teaching, another downside of it is not very scalable. So it's a good problem to have when you have so many one-on-one clients, right? But still, how can it scale? Because we always want to grow. Then group is a good way, right? And that's what happened when Meredith transitioned from one-on-one to groups. And then you actually make it much, much more when you group them together, right? So the hourly rate is even more than that.
It's cheaper for the student because you can give them a better discount because there's going to be more than one person. You as the teacher earn more. You also have way less prep work as the teacher. And I find it more fun for me and for the students because there's a very different vibe in group settings. Like one-on-ones are great and I still do them and I still enjoy them. But groups, I feel like people like kind of cut loose a little bit more. They crack jokes, they tell personal stories. And so I feel like the vibe is kind of more conducive to learning. And also when students are sending their homework to the same place, they see other students doing it, they feel more inspired. It's like much more conducive to learning. So groups are better for so many reasons. But as James was saying, when you're doing one-on-one, it's a good problem to have, but you get to a point where you're saturated. You're like, okay, I can't take on anymore. So the next step is group. Well, then what happens, like what happened to me, when your groups end up totally full and you can't open another one because you're in the middle of like 6 different groups. So you can't open another one. So then you reach another bottleneck.
Yeah, it's good. I think Barbara has another question about the groups. So Barbara, I think you are new to the program-based teaching. I would definitely recommend my ebook, How to Get Students Online and Charge High Rate, because I actually explained what program-based teaching is. I will share the link with you guys in just minutes. If you're an ESL teacher and then you haven't learned about program-based teaching, grab that book. I will share that with you. Now, maybe I'll let Meredith answer the question.
The ebook was definitely the first place that I started once I found James and the Teacher Entrepreneur Method. I started with the ebook and I was already able to implement some of the things I saw there in my methods and start growing my business before I even made the commitment of the 21-day challenge. Right. So yeah, program based is like, yeah, it's like a schedule, right? So we have, let's say the program is 10 classes. It's like every class is already designed before you start, right? So it's not customized to each student, but it is customized to a need that they all have.
That's good. That's good. All right, we're gonna move on. Thanks for the question, Barbara. I hope that book can help you a little bit more about program-based teaching, niche teaching. And if you guys have more questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, okay? All right, so we're at a point where Meredith was doing groups. And then next one, so obviously she was not satisfied, okay? She wanted more. She wanted to grow her business even more. And then the next stage was membership, right? So first of all, I want to give you guys a heads up, okay? I just did a membership workshop. It was like 2 hours. So 2 hour long. So we're not going to be able to talk about membership. I know if group if your groups or program-based teaching is new to some of you, maybe membership is even more difficult to understand. So I'm gonna share this membership workshop recording with you in the chat, so you can grab it and watch it. But now I do have one question for Meredith about this membership. And first of all, I want to congratulate Meredith because we just did a launch last week, right? And she's got 140
Mhm.
members in her membership. That's this month is the starting. This is the first month of her membership, and she got 140 members. And the price. So this is a founding member price, but it was $27. Is that right? $27 a month. Yeah, congrats you on that, Meredith. This is quite a good achievement. I'm really happy for that. Yeah. So the question I have about membership, I know you guys probably have more membership questions, is why? Now, if you're doing one-on-one, if you're doing groups, you're making good money already with all these. But why
Mhm.
membership? What attracts you? Why did you want to do one?
So before I started working with you, James, so when I reached out to you, I was like, okay, the reason I need help right now is because I'm receiving so many messages, emails of people who are interested, but my group classes are already full. So I'm like, of course, I wanted more. I wanted to continue growing my business, but also I was like telling a lot of people no. I was turning a lot of people away. I was like, my group classes are full right now. So join my waiting list and we'll see what happens in 2 months, And I didn't like that either. I wanted to have something to give them. And so I thought that that would be a digital product because, we hear that all the time, passive income, digital course, whatever. And I already have one. And so I thought when I started working with James, we would like focus on like a marketing plan for that. He was like, nope, we're going to do a membership. I was like, okay, you know best. But what he explained to me made absolutely perfect sense because if we think about it, a digital course, you're having to generate new sales all the time. So someone buys it and they buy it once and that's it. So now if you want to make more income, you've got to find more people to buy it. A membership, you have the same people kind of repeatedly making a purchase every month with their subscription cost, right? And so it's also very scalable because what it means is that I establish what's included in the membership. In my case, that's 2 videos. Those training videos also have a training like PDF homework sheet, 2 live calls, and also interaction within the community. And we have a very structured community. So I decide what that is. And that work that I've assigned for myself stays the same whether I have 10 members, 50 members, 100 members, 500 members, which is exactly what James explained to me. And so it's very scalable. I can work the same amount, but my income will increase according to how many people. And also I really like that I can serve a lot more people because like I said with the group thing, I of course wanted to grow, but I was like sad to have to tell so many people, sorry, there's no space for you right now. So with the membership, I overcome that as well because as many people can join as want to.
It's nice. It's nice. Yeah. Barbara said, "Wow, congratulations, Meredith. That's very encouraging. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions you guys have with the membership? Because if you are following us recently, I've been doing a lot of talks and emails and interviews and videos about membership because I really feel like this can be a good model for teachers. I think the part I like the most, I didn't even tell you, Meredith. So I like the membership model the most is actually the fact it does not involve sales that much. I don't know if you appreciate this because I know, Meredith, you are a good salesperson yourself. You can convert really good, but the sales is like headache. Is really a pain for many teachers. So get people on a call, talk to them, and then sell them your program. It sounds pretty cool, but it's not for everyone. But for membership, no, that's what we did, right? You didn't talk to anyone. You just have a landing page, and then get people to the landing page. They just try to understand what it is, and they decide to buy. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if do you want to kind of comment on that a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned getting on sales calls. I did this, of course, when I was kind of first starting out around the time when I did the 21-day challenge, which was the right move, of course, during that time to transition from teaching on Italki and, having these kind of lower rates to being a niche teacher, teaching on my own independently and charging higher, more premium rates, right? So of course those sales calls were the right move at that time. But those are difficult. Like I had a lot of no-shows and it takes up a lot of time. And it's like, of course, I did have high conversion in my sales calls, but like obviously not with the no-shows, and there were still people who didn't, and it just ended up eating up more of my time, which wasn't optimal for me because I did have a lot of genuinely interested people. And so I started to find a lot of people would book paid sessions without the need of a sales call. So I was, I was still doing them, and I was even charging like a deposit so that people would stop doing no-shows, and I would discount their deposit from their first class and all this stuff. And when I started working with James and explained all that, he was like, it sounds like you don't even need the sales calls because you have enough interest and you can do sales through just DMs. So we stopped with the sales calls, and I was kind of like, okay. So yeah, most of my sales happens in this kind of way that James described. They go to a page and kind of see what it is that I'm offering and can decide if they like it or not, and then purchase.
That's good. Of course, there's a lot more work before we get them on the landing page. All right, so now it's good. As I said, I'm gonna share the membership workshop recording with you guys. Maybe I'm gonna do it now. There's so much more I talk about in the workshop we did last month. I'm gonna send it to you in the chat. To learn more about membership, it's a great model, all right? And it's complicated. It's hard to really grasp, kind of understand at first, but it's a great model for you to guys to explore. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the next part. So through our kind of conversation, one thing I got inspired when you said that, Meredith, was you said, I believe the market is not saturated at all, and there's so much space, so many opportunities for teachers. And I know this is a little bit different from maybe a lot of teachers or what a lot of teachers been hearing from others. Hey, yeah, so unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of comments like that in many Facebook groups. And I don't even want to go and bother, to argue with them, because it's really hard to change how people believe. So for those of you guys who are here, you are here meaning you're open to what people tell you, to what we are going to tell you. So I want to ask you, Meredith, why do you think so? And what would be your suggestion for teachers who also want to get some success from this space?
So I want to share first about like how this conversation came about, like why I had that realization that the market is not oversaturated. Because, as I mentioned something about, if you Google what it's like to be an ESL teacher, I had a feeling for a long time that this is what I wanted to do. And I took another path in life because I used the internet and was like, what kind of salary do ESL teachers learn? What is it like to be an ESL teacher, especially an online ESL teacher? And the stuff that I saw was just like very gloomy, right? Like maximum $20 an hour, and you work a lot, and that that $20 an hour is only for the hour in class, not to mention your planning, and you don't always get guaranteed students, and blah blah blah. Like it just sounded really bad what I saw on the internet. And so I was like, well, even though I just have this feeling like I love languages and I also really like interacting with people in a kind of teaching environment, and I think I'm very good at it, I was just like, well, I guess I'm just not going to do it, until I reached a certain moment. I had to reach a moment in my life when I kind of had, let's say, nothing to lose. I was in a position where I was like, well, if I earn less money than I really need right now, for now, it's okay, right? So I was able to give it a try, and then found that all these things I was reading online weren't true at all, right? Now, the idea comes from the fact that there is an overabundance of general English teachers. That's true. There are tons of people who are native speakers and then they think they can teach English. And that's the kind of stuff I was saying. Wow, there's so many native speakers who just think they can be teachers, and so the market is oversaturated. Okay, but if you have a very specific message and mission and a unique way of doing it, then you will find the right people, and you're offering something that someone else isn't offering. So even though as an ESL teacher, you're offering the same thing that many other people are offering, if it's very unique to you and done in a specific way with a specific mission and a niche, then now you're no longer offering the same thing as other people, right? You're offering something totally different. And so how can that market be oversaturated when what you're offering is different from what everyone else is offering, right? So I had that realization, was like, wow. And I think this could be true for any industry, not just teaching English online. Like any industry that you look at and say, this is oversaturated. If you feel a strong passion and have something new you can bring to the industry, then it's not oversaturated because you will create a niche for yourself. And your question, James, was what would be my recommendation?
Maybe some tips or suggestions for, I guess you already talked about that. Just find your niche, right? Don't be the same
Mhm.
as other teachers. Um, yeah. So, other any other tips when it comes to like for teachers who are feeling that competition have to reduce their price in order to get students? That happens every
Yeah.
single day on these platforms. So, what other tips or suggestions or help you can give to them?
I don't wanna sound negative, but when I see those kind of comments, I somehow am surprised, like, when people say, "I had to lower my prices to get students," I'm like, why isn't there enough demand for what you're offering? So maybe what you're offering needs to change so that you choose something that has more demand. I think the best advice is to just start, because I would have never found my niche if I wasn't already teaching English. When you're from the outside and you're not a teacher yet, it's going to be really hard to decide what niche you want to teach. And I was able to find my niche by like working with people, especially people who speak Spanish, which is my second language, and kind of seeing what is their big problem. Why don't they feel fluent in English? What's holding them back? And then I was able to focus on my niche and also what I enjoy. And I never would have been able to find that if I hadn't started teaching. And yeah, like I said, if you feel like there's too much competition, people aren't choosing me, I have to lower my prices to get bookings. It's like something isn't matching with the supply demand thing. So you're offering something that's in an abundance of supply, and there's too little demand. And so that's why you're not getting a lot of classes. So you need to say, okay, I can still be a teacher and teach English, but I need to choose something that's like people have a more specific need for this and there's plenty of demand so that you can get classes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Meredith. All right. I have one last part to cover. So before that, if you have been enjoying this interview, you learn something from the interview, get inspired just a little bit, even, please click on like button to help us promote this interview on social media. I do believe there's so many teachers out there need to hear this, need to hear what we said today, need to hear what Meredith is trying to tell them. So if you can help us, click on the like button, help us promote this live events online on the social media. And I want to ask you guys already to put down one takeaway you've got so far from the interview we had today. One takeaway. What's the one thing you're gonna walk away with from this interview? What is the one thing that inspires you? What's the one thing you're gonna remember? Put it in the chat. I'm gonna read some of this, and we're gonna move on to the next part. All right, click on the like button to help us promote, and also share your takeaway in the chat, so I can read some of these and give Meredith some break, just to rest a little bit. All right, so let me see here. Um, yeah, and a good news is I fixed the problem with Facebook, so we're alive. We're live on Facebook too. It's good. Anyone? All right. So some of the comments coming through. So John, discover my niche. That's good. That's good. I like that. I like that. Barbara, identifying your particular niche. Okay. So the niche teaching really, um, I think we bring that home. Then Shamala, love your enthusiasm and positivity. I'm encouraged by your motivation to move to niche teaching groups and all right. Basically, Shamala wants to follow your path. Niche teaching group membership. Great. Thanks for sharing that, Shamala. Anyone else? Feel free to comment in the chat, and I'm gonna read later towards the end. Maybe one more. This Anuska. I like the fact Meredith was able to move so quickly through the phases of individual tutoring to membership, and that she has a successful membership without a whole lot of resources to start with. Okay, so actually, just to that point, right? We actually gonna talk about next is the mistakes, right? Mistakes Meredith had. So it's not only successes, right? There are mistakes, setbacks, there are learnings we had through this process, this journey. So Meredith, what are the big mistakes you have made in the past few years in this journey? You want to share with us today?
Well, as Missy said, I did kind of move quickly through the stages, but I think that's because, like I said, I waited a long time to become an ESL teacher. But another thing is, I think that people who finally start their teacher entrepreneur business after like 10, 15 years of ESL teaching, they just didn't find the right inspiration or resources to see that they could make it a business. I just happened to start teaching English, and then I happened to stumble upon James and the Bowie strategy pretty early in my path. And so that was what allowed me to kind of quickly transition from just being an online ESL teacher to creating a business out of it. So I was able to do that quickly, as Missy said. But in terms of mistakes, in that regard, I'm not too unsatisfied with anything because I did, objectively move pretty quickly. However, one thing that I think back on a lot is the way that I inched my prices up very slowly, right? And I don't know why I felt like I had to do that. I think if we look at mindset, that's definitely all to do with it. But I just felt like I couldn't shock my students by like doing a big jump in prices. And so for up until, I don't know, for like 2 years, every time I raised my prices, I did it in this very incremental, slow way. Of course, it amounted to a lot over time, but I would only ever raise them by like $1 or $2. And it was just out of this fear of like shocking people, or I just felt like that's how I had to do it. And then as I was getting more and more successful, growing my social media, getting people to pay, bigger prices that I was finding off of like platforms like Italki, I was like, why do I need to inch my prices up? I can just like raise them $10. And if people don't want to pay that anymore, then they're not my student anymore. And then more people who will come along who do want to pay that. So that's one thing, is that I was always like afraid to just really raise my prices. I felt like I needed to do it incrementally, and I really didn't need to do that. I could have grown even faster if I would have been willing to just raise them.
Okay, just to get some references, how much you were increasing when you say inching the prices, how much like incrementally you're increasing?
So as I mentioned, when I first started on Italki, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what it was going to be like. I didn't know what the demand was going to be like. So I just set $10 an hour. And from there, I had my schedule totally full. And so then I was like, oh, well, and then I just started raising by $2 an hour every like 3
Yeah.
months. So every 3 months I would add $2. So it was like $10, $12, $14, $16. And every time I was always like, oh, people are still paying this. And then I would raise it to 23. I was like, wow, people are still paying $20. Like as if this was so much. And my schedule at no point dropped and was empty based on these increases. I think that's the other thing I thought too, is that I need to test the waters and see. You can test the waters in a big way. You can jump in, and if it's not working, you can always go back down. I didn't need to just like creep up $2 every couple months.
That's good to hear. All right. Yeah, any other mistakes you feel like you want to share, or anything else to add there?
I definitely think like waiting too long to do coaching. So as an accent coach, that's my specialty now. I focus on phonetics, pronunciation, and accent. I waited to join a coaching program for that because I found one that seemed really good, but it was kind of expensive, right? And so I bookmarked it, and it stayed in my bookmarks for like 7 or 8 months. And I started growing my business before I did this training. When I joined the training, I was like, this would have saved me so much time, because it already offered so many resources that I had spent my time researching and creating for myself.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the actual career training part. But then when it comes to business training, kind of the same thing. Like as I mentioned, I read James's ebook, and I would listen to lots of business podcasts and kind of Google like, well, how do you do XYZ marketing? I remember, Googling like, what is a funnel and stuff like that, trying to figure it out on my own, because I've always been a very like do it myself person. But when I finally did join the 21-day challenge, I was like, I'm already doing a lot of these things, but I had to learn how to do them through trial and error. If I would have just joined the program, I would have had someone hand me a roadmap rather than me kind of like figuring it out on my own. So waiting too long to get some kind of outside help, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's the same thing for everyone. So I've heard teachers telling us, "Hey, James, I've been following you for 4 years," and then they finally ready to take action, take some training, coaching. Yes, you do need to invest, right? Nobody gonna. I mean, for people who offer a lot of things for free, that's great. But if you don't get this hand holding, you are using other people's hours or time, you do expect to pay them. But we're talking about the return on investment. If that training, that coaching can save you 1 year, 2 years of time, like how much, what's the price tag you put on that, right? But I think I like the part you told me. I think Meredith, you said that, yeah, maybe I could have put this off, like launch a membership myself and get these members, grew the membership. I could have done myself, but how long did it take us to do? Like 3 months. When did we
Yeah,
start? March?
exactly. We
So we
started at the end of February, like start of March, and that
March
was starting from basically zero, which is like making sure I have a good freebie and a funnel to get people into my email list. And so, like, literally starting from that point.
and launch
Exactly.
membership, get
Uh-huh.
140 members, and everything's going in 3 months. All right, I would
Exactly.
say you're super smart, Meredith. You can figure it out. You can pull this off. We can get these things going in, let's say, 9 months. Okay, how much?
Mhm.
6 months worth to you, right? Not
Exactly.
not not mentioning you already make good money now. So how much money you gonna make in these 6 months when you're already running it, right? So these are things you have to think about too.
Exactly. Like, of course, I don't expect anyone to invest money that they don't have, but there will be signs when it's time to get some help from someone else rather than trying to figure it out yourself. And I'm a very figure it out myself kind of way. As James said, one of the first things I said when we started working together was like, I can probably do this on my own. I'm really smart. But because I'm also very smart, I know that if I do it on my own, I'm going to be Googling things like trial and error, and it's going to take me like who knows how long. I'll do it, but it'll take me a while. Why not invest in someone who already has like an exact pathway that has been proven to work so that I can reduce all of my time? And of course, it pays for itself nearly immediately. Right. Another one of the signs I mentioned, like you will have signs when it's time to invest in this, is that around the time when I was like thinking about doing one-on-one coaching with James, he told me how much it was going to cost. And then that same month, I did more than that in sales. And I was like, my business, that's a sign to me that my business is ready for the professional help of someone else. And then, of course, with the membership, it's going to pay for itself basically in 2 months of membership, right? Because we're already done. Like James said, in like 3-ish months, the membership is launched, people are in there. I'm going to have I have the first revenue from the joining, and then I'm going to have the recurring revenue once they renew next month. And that's already basically going to cover all of my training costs. And
Yeah,
I got there
yeah.
so much faster than I would have if I would have been trying to figure it out by myself.
That's great. That's great. Thanks for that. Yes, I think that's another mindset, doing yourself, and the growth mindset, investing and finding people to help you to save time. Yeah, time is actually more valuable than money. So I think a lot of people understand that. Good. Thanks for everything so far, Meredith. And we have 10 minutes left. If you guys have any questions regarding anything we talked about so far, for me, for Meredith, put in the chat. So we're gonna answer as many as we can. All right. So while you guys putting down the questions, I will remind you a couple more things. Number one, I know some of you guys are interested in niche teaching, program-based teaching. That's the questions came up a lot. So Meredith did a 21-day challenge. Is really good program to start with. So I'm gonna put a link in the chat in case you guys are interested. It's a very minimum investment, okay, to get it started. If you want to check it out, I put a link in the chat. You can see it. The other thing I do want to remind you one more time about the online events we're gonna run this month. Okay, let me just get that. Make sure you can enroll. You can join this monthly event, especially the very first one, the online 2-day teacher online success summit. The good news is Meredith is gonna be there too. So we're actually gonna have a panel on the second day, where we're gonna invite more clients into a panel. We're actually going to talk about their journey, talk about everything they do online, and also give you the time to ask questions. So that's going to happen on the second day of this workshop. Okay, so I'm going to share this link with you one more time here. So once you click a link, right, you just need to come here. Okay, put down your email, your name, and then you will receive the Zoom link, and then we're gonna receive your email. So when before the event, we're gonna send you emails to remind you, and also after the event, we're gonna send you the recording. Okay, so definitely check out this event. And if you guys have more questions, put in the chat and answer them right now. I'm gonna stop sharing this. Good. Let's see here. Some comments.
Thomas, I think, was the first one, and that's a
Which
really
one?
good question. Thomas
Okay, Thomas. This one.
R.
This
Yeah.
one.
So
Okay.
what helped you to generate such demand from your audience? So, really good question. So, one, finding a niche, but I'm selling something that I would buy. I think that's very important. So your niche should not be random, in my opinion. This is my opinion. Your niche should not just be random, like, oh, I'm gonna choose, like, I don't know, IT professionals because they have extra money and you don't care anything about IT or whatever, right? So I'm selling a service that I would buy and I have bought. So I do accent coaching because I speak a second language. I learned Spanish, and for me, one of my goals for being fluent in Spanish is like, I don't just want to be fluent and know all of the grammar and vocabulary. I want to sound really fluent. I want people to hear me and be like, whoa, you kind of sound like a native speaker. That's my goal. And so that's the person I'm marketing to, someone who's basically like me. And so I feel like naturally I'm going to attract those people. So when I make videos on or reels rather on Instagram and reach out to people on LinkedIn, I'm selling something I really, really believe in. And so I know, because I'm one of those people, that those people are out there who want the same service. It's like, okay, I don't just want to speak English. I want to speak English with a really, really native like accent, because that's what makes me feel good about my language skills and what makes me feel confident. So sell something that you would buy. Choose a service that you really feel like people need this. And if you speak a second language, that you would say, I would buy this service. I would be willing to invest in this. So that's how I generated interest. Now, on the practical side, that first part is like, come up with your message. You have to have something you're selling that you are passionate about and that you know that there's a demand for, because it's something that you would also want. Two, on the practical side, social media. And, I never would have started social media if I hadn't received the message that even people with small followings on social media still make all the time six figures. People with only a couple hundred followers can still make a lot of money. So when I was receiving that, it helped me to feel like, okay, so if I try this, I don't have to become a famous influencer and I can still make this good money. And I was still charging a lot even before my following grew. Now, because I had a specific message that I'm passionate about and I shared it regularly, which James talks about, you have to share good quality content and regularly. My followers are a lot now. Like, I have a really large account on Instagram, but people ask me, how do I do that? Make good content that is talking about something very specific, and be yourself and post regularly. So that's how I've grown my Instagram, and that's all. There's no secret. That's the secret. So that's what has allowed me to grow. And of course, now I have a lot of interest because my following is big. But even before then, if you're saying the right thing and targeting the right person, they will find you and the interest will be there.
Good. Thank you for that, Meredith. Barbara asked a question, where do we go from here? All right, Barbara, so I think you should follow what Meredith did. Read the ebook first. The ebook I sent it to you earlier, read that ebook that explains niche teaching, that explains program-based teaching. And then if you want to work with us, join the 21-day challenge, and then start niche teaching online, getting students, right? I think that would be my suggestion, which is
Yeah. And for
exactly what
Barbara,
we did.
I think niche teaching should be your ultimate goal, but I think there's nothing wrong with starting as just a general ESL teacher to gain the knowledge. Like, if you don't already have an ESL or a TEFL certificate, or you don't have any experience, just start, get a TEFL certificate. And like, if you speak another language, that's even better, because you know what it's like to start from zero and learn a language. And that's already going to make you a better teacher, because you know what you need to learn a language. So I would say just start, and then get a little experience, and definitely join a program like James's so that you can get more specific and then grow it into a business.
That's good. That's good. Thanks for that. So Steffi said you've already achieved that. There's people in Mexico when we here we in Mexico think you are Mexican, so you do walk the talk. That's good. That's good.
I think you missed one. Andrea commented, can I share the links for my socials?
Yeah.
So on Instagram, I am Accent Coach Meredith.
Accent
altogether.
Coach Meredith. That's good. Yeah, go to Instagram, type in Accent Coach Meredith. You can find Meredith.
Yep.
Good. All right. So let me see. There's one more here. Do you have something to sell or your landing page set up before you started posting? My answer is no, Meredith.
No, I didn't. I just started posting because I was growing my business like through kind of direct messages on LinkedIn, as you learn in the 21-day challenge. And I was like, well, I also need like a presence, which will just kind of be, if they search for me or want to see, that I'm credible, there is an Instagram page, which in some ways, because of the popularity of social media, is actually kind of more important than maybe a website, because they can see, oh, well, like she posts this content, she knows what she's doing, people follow her, whatever. So yeah, I didn't have a website when I first started my Instagram account. And then as it grew, I was like, well, it would be nice to have a website so that it looks a little more professional, but it's not necessary. You can definitely do it with a link tree, which is free. Those are great for someone just starting out.
It's good. It's good. All right. So another one from Barbara. So she has TEFL, QTS, teaching one-on-ones, great development. Exactly what I need guidance in. That's great. Thanks for showing up today, Barbara. All right. Any more questions? We have 1 minute left. I just want to thank Meredith again. The 1 hour went away very quickly. So Meredith, any takeaway from you, like from the questions, interaction with the audience, anything you've learned or anything you want to share with us before we finish?
Well, I see that a lot of the comments here are talking about like my attitude and stuff like that. And I want to say that that's certainly part of it. We've talked a little bit about mindset, but if you just like transmit a good energy, I feel like, I mean, of course, I've grown my Instagram a lot. And so people can look at that and say, oh, well, of course she's successful. She has a lot of followers. I didn't start with a lot of followers. Of course not. I started from zero, just like anyone else. And if you transmit the right kind of personality, like your actual personality and positivity, I think it's kind of a little bit inevitable that the right people will find you or you will reach the right people and you'll be able to grow your business.
I like that. So it all came down to mindset. Okay, yourself. So we talk a lot about strategies, pathways, niche teaching, group program based teaching. So they're useless if you don't think you can do it. If you don't think you are going to do it, right? It's useless, right? So start with yourself, mindsets, think differently, positively, and also get around with people like Meredith, right? Surround yourself with people like that. Get influenced, energy. That's great. All right, so I'm gonna read one more comment from Neil. I have taught accent reduction in person for several years. I like what you say about talking about what you love, and I don't have certification, but I just have experience.
Yeah, Neil, I started before I had a certificate too. I just started to put things together. Like I said, when I was teaching general English, I noticed all the time. And that's how you can find your niche too. Like, see what is the need, right? The people who were coming to me would say, I need to be more fluent. I need to be more fluent. And so they would always think that it was about grammar. And then I would kind of do some grammar tests and be like, your grammar's fine. You're not really making mistakes. But I would write lists of the words they were mispronouncing, and these lists would be super long. And I'm like, so it's not grammar. You're mispronouncing a lot of words. And so that's how I came to that. And then I did professional accent coaching myself in Spanish. And so that kind of gave me the tools to get started as an accent coach before I got certified. But once I was really solid in it, I was like, yes, this is it. This is my niche. I was no longer kind of thinking, well, maybe my niche could be this or that. I was like, nope, this is it. And then I went all in and did a certification.
It's good. Yes, you do need that to get started, guys. I think what Meredith is trying to tell you guys, just get started. Just take action. Do it, right? Don't say there like what Meredith did maybe long ago. Want to become a ESL teacher, want to become an online teacher, but has so much thought, and never started. Yeah. All right, guys. I think that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us and watch us, staying with us for 1 hour. If you miss any part of the interview, same link, you will be able to watch the entire interview. All right, and follow us. I'm gonna share the event calendar one more time. Feel free to sync our calendar so you don't miss any future events. And make sure you join this 2-day workshop. and Meredith's going to be there. We're going to have another chat together with other clients. It's going to be great. All right. But one last thing, take action. Take action and do it. Thank you again, Meredith. It's a great interview. Thank you
Thank
very much for your
you.
time.
I enjoyed it. Thanks, guys, for being here. Bye.
Bye, everyone.